Hello, it's noon on Friday, it's September 9th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. You're tuned in to our midday edition of Arirang News. We start with the news that's been breaking this morning that North Korea appears highly likely to have conducted yet another nuclear test. South Korea's defense ministry says it believes the regime has conducted its fifth test after a seismic tremor was detected this morning. It was a magnitude of 5.0. It was detected at around 9:30 a.m. South Korea time around 2.5 hours ago. For more, we are going to connect to our Kim Hyun-bin, who is standing by at the Ministry of National Defense in Seoul. Hyun-bin, what's the latest?
Good afternoon, Mark. South Korea's defense ministry said a little over an hour ago that North Korea is believed to have conducted its fifth nuclear test. Now, the ministry says that it was the largest of its kind, and military is estimating the power at 10 kilotons. Now, during Pyongyang's fourth nuclear test, it detected a 4.8 magnitude tremor and estimated power at 6 kilotons. Now, South Korea Joint Chiefs of Staff said their artificial quake was detected near North Korea's Punggye at around 9:30 this morning. The ministry says that it had been surveilling North Korea's nuclear test site since the regime conducted a test earlier this year. Now, government sources said there is a high chance the fifth nuclear test today was to mark the 68th anniversary of the establishment of the regime. Now, the regime has conducted 5 nuclear tests so far in 2006, 2009, 2013, and January of this year. Now, that's all for now. We'll bring more updates in the later newscast.
Now, South Korea's presidential office has convened an emergency National Security Council meeting that started at 11 a.m. Korea time around an hour ago. But with the commander-in-chief, President Park Geun-hye in Laos, wrapping up her visit there, the meeting will be chaired, or is being chaired, by Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn. Let's connect to our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun, who is currently in Laos. So, Ji-sun, this suspected but highly probable fifth nuclear test comes while the South Korean leader is in Southeast Asia. In fact, the president has been over there gathering support from the international community to up the pressure on Pyongyang.
Mark, the president held an emergency meeting with foreign affairs and trade ministers and top secretaries. Here in Vientiane just released a message on the North Korea's fifth nuclear test. None of the North Korea's fifth nuclear test as followed 4 tests earlier this year is a clear violation of the UN Security Council resolution, and Seoul strongly condemns the aggression, which is a strong challenge against the international community. Seoul in close alliance with the international community will seek stronger sanctions on global and bilateral levels. He also said Pyongyang is only en route to self-destruction and further isolation, completely neglecting the international call to give its nuclear ambition. Park will return to Seoul earlier than scheduled, canceling her afternoon schedule of her official visit to Laos. Her last schedule will be the Korea-Laos summit with her Laos counterpart. The president's chief aides have also said the president has been fully briefed on the latest updates, and the top office is taking the situation very seriously and have agreed to take necessary measures accordingly. The National Security Council meeting was held at 11 a.m., chaired by Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn due to the president's absence, and a briefing is scheduled shortly. The top office also said it will notify reporters of further updates and any details confirmed about the nuclear test by the North. This comes less than 24 hours after the East Asia Summit adopted an unprecedented non-proliferation statement on Thursday, urging North Korea to abandon its nuclear program and abide by its international obligations. It was the first separate statement from the National Security Forum to refer specifically to North Korea. During her 8-day trip that started at the Eastern Economic Forum in Russia, followed by the G20 summit in China, and the ASEAN summit here in Laos, President Park has held a series of bilateral talks with the leaders of the U.S., Russia, China, and Japan, honoring their support to fully implement the sanctions on North Korea's nuclear provocation. Now, through that process, they'll have trilateral cooperation with the U.S. and Japan, and trilateral communication with the U.S. and China to counter North Korean threats. Now, in an apparent protest that international unity against the regime's nuclear provocation, Pyongyang launched ballistic missiles on Monday while the G20 summit was underway in Hangzhou, China. And on the president's last day of the three-nation multilateral diplomacy trip, Pyongyang appears to have again protested Seoul's strengthened international ties to jointly counter North Korean threats. President has been stressing the gravity of North Korea's advanced nuclear program and told world leaders that South Korea's national security is at risk as a matter of life and death. I will keep you updated throughout the day. Mark?
Well, thank you very much, to our Song Ji-son reporting there from Laos. Apologies if the line wasn't that clear, but she is calling from Southeast Asia, and it's a very busy time, as you'd imagine. Now, before today, North Korea had conducted 4 nuclear tests in the space of around 10 years. We are going to take a look back at a summary of the timeline of the previous tests. Our Oh Se-young has this report.
Nuclear tests have been North Korea's go-to last resort when backed into a corner. Pyongyang's first test came on October 9, 2006, in protest of the US freezing North Korean assets held in a Macau-based bank. The US Geological Service's detection of a 4.3 magnitude tremor at the Punggye-ri nuclear test site signalled North Korea's arrival as the world's 8th nuclear power. On May 25, 2009, less than a month after North Korea walked away from the 6-party nuclear talks aimed at its denuclearization, Pyongyang conducted a second underground test, claiming that it had detonated a plutonium device. A 4.7 magnitude earthquake was detected at Punggye-ri with an estimated yield of 3 to 4 kilotons, a significant jump from an estimated explosive force of less than 1 kiloton in 2006. The regime's third nuclear test was conducted on February 12, 2013, with the North claiming to have tested a miniaturized and lighter nuclear device with greater explosive force. The speculation was that North Korea used uranium, marking a major leap forward from the plutonium bombs used in its previous 2 tests. It was also the first test under the new and young leader Kim Jong-un and came when talks with Seoul and Washington stalled. The first 3 tests were atomic bombs, but in January 2016, North Korea claimed to have successfully tested a much more powerful hydrogen bomb. However, with a 5.1 magnitude artificial earthquake and an estimated yield of some 6 kilotons, a figure not much higher than its third test, experts have cast doubt on the claim. Falling way short of the telltale signs of a full thermonuclear bomb test, observers have suggested the 4th test was a conventional nuclear bomb enhanced with fusion fuels. However, what's undeniable is that North Korea's nuclear weapons program has sprung forward leaps and bounds over the years. With the 5.3 magnitude earthquake detected on Friday near Punggye-ri, where all 4 of the previous tests were conducted, it seems North Korea may have carried out its 5th nuclear test. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
So if you're just tuning in, we suspect North Korea has carried out a 5th nuclear test this morning around 2.5 hours ago. We're still waiting from an official announcement from North Korea. It normally comes a few hours after such a test. But let's get a response now from Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry and how the international community is reacting to what is highly likely to have been a 5th nuclear test by North Korea. Let's go to our Connie Kim at Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry for all the latest. Connie.
Mark, well, South Korea's Foreign Ministry has convened another emergency meeting that began around 30 minutes ago, chaired by 6-party denuclearization talks representative Kim Hong-gyun. The ministry earlier held a meeting immediately upon signs of a 5th nuclear test by North Korea around 9:30 a.m. South Korea time, under the lead of Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam, as Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-tae is in Laos with the president. An official says the Foreign Ministry is in contact with other government ministries as well as South Korea's allies on the matter. The UN Security Council is expected to discuss the issue soon, too. Japan, which also held an emergency meeting this morning, is analyzing the apparent test and has condemned it. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the test was unacceptable and must be denounced. He added he has exchanged views with President Park Geun-hye and President Barack Obama about North Korea's threat, including its recent missile test while the world leaders are in Hangzhou for the G20 summit. While Beijing and Washington have not shown official responses yet, the media are reporting of the chances Pyongyang has conducted another nuclear test. That's all I have for now. I'll have more updates in our later newscast. Mark?
Thank you, Connie, for that report from Seoul's Foreign Ministry there. Now we're going to take it over to South Korea's National Assembly. They've also been responding to this news. Let's connect to our parliamentary correspondent Park Ji-won for more. Ji-won, what kind of reaction are we seeing in the National Assembly?
Hello, Mark. The ruling Central Party has just issued its official statement denouncing the nuclear test, saying all branches of the government will be prepared for any eventuality. And Korea's 3 main political parties canceled most of their pre-arranged schedules today to hold emergency security meetings of their own. The ruling party began their emergency security meeting at noon just now, while the two main opposition parties, the Minju Party of Korea and People's Party, have been in security meetings since about an hour ago. Those are closed doors, so details of their discussions are not yet known, but the two opposition parties have also already come out with their official statement strongly denouncing the North Korean regime. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea's leader Choo Mi-ae stressed that the test is a clear violation of UN resolutions, and her liberal-leaning party clearly opposes any nuclear weapons on the Korean peninsula. Choo said the nuclear weapons will only bring isolation to the North Korean regime. The minor opposition People's Party also denounced the North nuclear test, saying cooperation and talks are the only answer to the situation, not missiles or nuclear arsenals. Well, that's all I have for now, and I will bring you more updates in a later newscast. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Ji-won. So all three of South Korea's major political parties have condemned North Korea's suspected fifth nuclear test in the strongest possible terms. Now, we're going to take a look at the history of sanctions that have been imposed on North Korea following its previous nuclear test conducted by the regime. It might give us an idea of what kind of response the international community will have this time. Here's Kwon-swa.
When North Korea conducted its first nuclear test a decade ago, the United Nations Security Council was quick to respond as its 15 member states unanimously adopted a resolution against the regime. First and foremost, the resolution forbid any further nuclear tests and demanded Pyongyang abandon all of its nuclear weapons and freeze its nuclear program in a, quote, complete, verifiable, and irreversible manner. Along with this came sanctions in the form of asset freezes and travel bans on people involved with the regime's nuclear program, restrictions on imports and exports of military and technological materials, as well as luxury items. After its second nuclear test 3 years later, the weapons embargo was extended. The new resolution authorized UN member states to inspect North Korean cargo and destroy items suspected of being connected to weapons development. Tougher financial sanctions were imposed in 2013 to hinder money flowing into the regime's proliferation programs. 3 individuals and 2 entities were added to the blacklist. With the sanctions getting stronger with each nuclear test, the process of putting them together got lengthier too. Resolution 2270 was born on March 2, 2016, almost 2 months after Pyongyang's 4th nuclear test. Cargo inspections were made mandatory, and so-called sectoral bans were included for the first time, restricting trade of coal, iron, and titanium. The banking and financial sector were targeted, and sanctions on 16 individuals and 12 entities were added to the list. Due to the general consensus that the Korean peninsula needs to be denuclearized, independent countries have been pursuing their own efforts in punishing the regime. South Korea suspended the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex, which was the only joint business cooperation between the two Koreas. The U.S. included a so-called secondary boycott to its new law, and Japan banned ships and North Korean people from entering the country. Dubbed as being close to a terminating resolution, the Resolution 2270 was supposed to put an end to North Korea's violations. But as Pyongyang shows no will to abide by the rules, many have expressed the opinion that there's room for more punitive measures. Kwon-swa, Arirang News.
Okay, well, that's where we're going to leave it for now on this Friday afternoon here in Seoul. We will be following this story as it continues to break and we get more developments coming out about the highly likely incident north of the border. North Korea appears very likely to have tested a 5th nuclear bomb. We'll be back throughout the day with more updates. So until then, goodbye.